Hi, so today in the 4-0 Impact series, I'm delighted to be joined by Pat Flynn, CMO and co-founder at Hazel Technologies, Chicago, Illinois-based ag tech business. Recently secured Series C funding. So, look, I'll just jump straight into it. Pat, if you could give a bit of an introduction and a bit of an overview of Hazel Technologies and the story thus far.
Yeah, that sounds good, Leighton. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Hazel Technologies, like you said, we're based in the United States, headquartered here in Chicago, and our focus is creating products that protect specifically fresh fruit quality right now in the supply chain. And so a lot of the crops that we work with quite heavily include apples, grapes, berries is a big one that we work with. And ultimately, our unique angle that we're taking is we're working our technology into existing packaging or into existing processes so that they're easier to implement in the supply chain. So you see a lot of innovation in this area, in this space, which a lot of people refer to as shelf life extension or food waste reduction. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of companies and they're creating a new process or they're creating a new system. And our philosophy is that if you want to have the biggest impact and if you want people to really use your solution, you have to integrate into the existing system that they're currently operating in and ultimately reduce the friction as much as possible. So that's our unique take on the market.
Understood. Yeah. So I suppose integrating with existing infrastructure is the key to your product. So talk to me, if you would, about Avolast. So that was one of the products that I was doing my research. That seems to be one that comes up so much. So if you could just give us maybe some insight into how that come around and a bit more detail on the product.
Sure. So that product is no longer, that brand, I should say, is no longer an active brand, but it is a good example of the type of collaborations that we do. So that example that you alluded to was a partnership that we actually still have ongoing with Mission Produce, largest distributor of fresh avocados in the entire world. And so a multinational corporation that specializes in fresh avocado production, packing, and distribution. And so at the time, we were collaborating with them and trying to figure out how do we really get the attention of people in the industry to learn more about this solution. And so we came up with that marketing campaign, I think is a fair way to call it. And so we still work with Mission. They still use our products. We still have several different exciting things that we're developing with their feedback and partnership. But that's an example. The greater example, I think there, Leighton, is we do integrate directly with the grower. That's something that's very important to our business model. And it all goes back to, like I said, integrating with the supply chain. Ease of use, that's something that we talk about a lot at Hazel. How do we make our solutions easy to implement in the existing supply chain? Because you have a lot of pressures, whether it's labor or regulation. It's just a lot harder these days to come up with a new process or tell a business that has a lot of logistics to do something different to reduce waste or something like that. We want to make it easy for the customer.
Understood. I use that example because it's quite a well-documented example of a success story, a case study, essentially. Hence the reason I used it. But look, it's a really interesting product. I suppose on the face of it, it's simple in that it's a simple application. Obviously, there's a lot of chemistry and a lot of science that goes behind it. But I'm really interested in knowing a bit more about the impact, because there's some seriously impressive numbers. So if you could just maybe go into that. We were talking about it before. So in terms of the amount of greenhouse gases that are produced, for instance, by or estimated to be produced annually by food waste.
Yeah, it's a problem that is a lot bigger than people realize, and I think these days people are starting to realize how big of a problem food waste is. There's been a lot of high profile articles in Europe and in the US regarding this problem. There was a big one recently, a couple months ago, that the New York Times did that I would recommend. It's a really good one. I mean, just some of the notes that I think put things in perspective. If food waste was a country, it would be the third biggest greenhouse gas emitter behind the US and China. So it's quite a big set of greenhouse gas emissions. The New York Times article that I alluded to, they had a stat in there which I hadn't heard before, which I thought was really unbelievable, which is the greenhouse gas emissions from food waste are approximately 2 times larger than the entire global aviation industry. So I think that's something that's really relatable for people. You know, you think of planes, and I know for myself, I'm always wondering, you know, when I'm on a plane, what's the impact on the environment of that? And it turns out food waste has a way bigger impact. I mean, they're both big contributors, but it just puts things in perspective.
Of course.
Nobody's thinking when they're throwing out, you know, an apple or berries that went bad. They don't think about that in the same way as when they're getting on a plane, for example. And it turns out that they should be thinking about them, you know, more similarly, given some of these statistics that we're seeing.
Yeah, no, very interesting. And when you put these things, you know, into context, so that, you know, so the layperson can understand them, I mean, the impact is even more greater. So look, in I suppose to offer a bit more context, you know, year to date, you guys started in 2015. It's been a pretty meteoric rise. The Series C was circa 70 million. Is that right?
70 million US, correct.
USD. Okay. And company-wise, you're at about what, just shy of 100 heads so far.
That's approximately correct.
Right. Impressive, very impressive. In terms of, do you have any details on, I suppose, how much, you know, what the impact is? I mean, how much food you that you've estimated that you've saved as a company since inception?
We have estimates on that, Leighton. So to give you just a couple of data points, right now we're working with approximately well over 300 grower packers in the supply chain. So quite a large quantity of growers and packers. A single one has quite a bit of volume, and so to be working with 300 is a testament to the solution and its adoption. And then as far as the actual impact on a per, you know, unit volume basis, we estimate that our products have been used with about 5.7 billion pounds. That's pounds, the weight, the US weight metric, not the monetary metric, but about 5.7 billion pounds. And then about 460 million pounds of waste eliminated. So, you know, starting to be big numbers. And like I said, to me, it's just a testament to the amount of growers and packers that we have using our solutions. And when you're working with that many companies and growing, the impact statistics, you know, add up quite quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a massive number. Look, I suppose finally, in conclusion, you know, what does the future look like for you? You know, where you're at now, what does the next 12 months look like for Hazel Technologies?
Next 12 months for us is going to be very focused on expansion internationally. When we raised the fundraising round that we most recently completed, that was one of the big stated purposes of that fundraising round, which was to take a developed and strong business in the United States and take that to all the different areas of the world where they grow the fresh produce items that we work with. So the US is, for some of the crops that I mentioned, the apples, the berries, things like that, the US is only about 1/10, only about 10% of the global production market. And so the idea was, let's take in this investment so that we can really quickly expand to that other 90% of the market and really have a really good solution for those crops, for those growers, that not only reduces waste, but also is a good choice for their business because they're making more money and having higher profit. Without the business case, none of this is going to work, and none of it is possible. So that's a big focus for us as well.
Understood. So it's all about, it's now about scale. It's about taking it worldwide and you know, 10xing the impact.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Well, look, Pat, it was really good to get you on here. Look, you know, Hazel Technologies is a very, you know, well documented. You know, you guys are getting a lot of column space, and rightly so, in terms of what you've achieved to date. So it was really interesting to put a bit of context around the story. You know, and I suppose, you know, really really understand the the impact that that you guys have had in a fairly short time. So I'll add the I'll make sure that the article you mentioned, that was in New York Post, New York Times, was it?
New York Times.
New York Times.
I can send it to you if you want to check it out.
I'll make sure that that's put in the in the show notes when it goes out, so everyone can click to that. And brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much for joining this, and look, best of luck for the future.
Thanks, Leighton. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good one.